All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mackenzie. We really appreciate having you on today. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to share some insights with us.
Absolutely. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I find that almost everyone in behavioral health has a very specific story about why they're in behavioral health. Would you mind sharing yours?
Sure, absolutely. So I won't start from the very beginning. I'll kind of dive into grad school where I really truly thought I would be a child psychologist. And I was in my master's at Pepperdine getting a clinical psychology degree. And I fell by accident because I had to pay my way through my master's into a technician job, working direct with families and in clinic and out in the community, sibling soccer games, and just fell in love with the science and the quick application of it and the ability to work with the families. So
Mm,
having a family as the quote unquote client, kind of a client unit, just got me really excited about it. And so I pivoted, went back for my BCBA certification instead, got my hours, and more than 10 years later, I'm here.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I know that that still kind of informs your philosophy in serving in the ABA space, right? Is that you're serving the whole family, not just the student.
Absolutely. Yes. It's always
Yeah,
been
that's awesome.
a value of mine for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what do you see as the biggest barrier for families trying to access ABA therapy today?
Yeah, great question. I actually just hung up with a family earlier today. I think truly the biggest barrier is a diagnosis. I think an unnecessary diagnosis to access insurance based services for ABA is one of the biggest barriers because families feel like they're, on a wait list just to get a diagnosis and then on a wait list to get services, to access good services, quality services, depending if they're in rural areas, what does that look like? And then if anyone, heaven forbid, Googles ABA as a parent, now they feel bad trying to access ABA for their children or, unnecessary stigmas of ABA is only for kids. Even worse, ABA is only for kids with autism. So ABA is for everyone, and especially lifelong learners and teens and young adults.
Absolutely, absolutely. So your team is growing. How do you balance clinical quality with scalability as your organization grows, scales, adds locations, adds clinicians?
Yeah, great question. I think there's kind of two pinpoints. One's easy, keeping clinicians in executive roles. I think the clinical piece is always really important as the forefront, but then kind of the harder piece is making sure that decisions are prioritized for families. So if you keep feeding our values and keep supporting the families and recognizing we're family focused, and keeping that as why we're growing. Like the core of growth is to reach more families. And remembering that reminds us to keep quality intact, right? So if our decisions for growth always keep family as the forefront, then the quality decisions remain.
Absolutely. If one is true, then the other follows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. What strategies have worked best to keep your team motivated and supported as you grow and as you scale?
Yeah, and I think as one of the executives and leaders and just kind of being part of the team as one of the first employees in North Carolina and kind of building the team around me has been really exciting. And I laugh that there's kind of two things that I always ask people before they join our team. What do you want to be when you grow up? Because I think if you really identify what somebody wants to be when they grow up, if they're 20, 30, 50, that drive, that dream kind of keeps people alive in their motivation and reminds people where they want to be in the future. So having that as an immediate answer and knowing that that's a long-term goal keeps the idea fresh and available for growth within the company. So I can support that growth and that opportunity and that dream with varying tasks and jobs and roles and role growth and certifications and all that, knowing your dream. And I always tell people you should really be motivated, enjoy, be passionate about 80% of the tasks that are part of your job. The other 20%, as a company, as a leader, I always try to take the 20% off your plate. Like I would love it to be 100. And guess what? Someone else really loves that 20% that you don't. There's a job for everyone. So I think we really keep that true. I keep that true. Kind of preparing for this and looking at some numbers and kind of getting excited about avenues of how we grow and motivate our team. Actually, our North Carolina BCBAs, we have a 91% retention rate since we opened North Carolina. So
Wow.
this level of opportunity and support exists. We live it. and the data shows it. So it's kind of exciting to motivate and support the team and then feel the motivation, right? It's a two-way street.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that kind of retention speaks for itself because that is rare. That's really rare. I
Yeah.
think, as we all know, unfortunately, in the space. So, where do you see the future of ABA therapy in the next, say, 5 years?
I don't know if 5 years is long enough to see what I want ABA therapy to look like, but I think it depends on what state you're in, where you are in advocacy and licensing and all of the things that exist. So every state is kind of at its own pace, but I'll say in general, we're already starting to see it. ABA is going to start to fracture, right? And I think it's a good thing. ABA is starting to fracture into different models, right? BCBA direct models, parent-led models, value-based models, and moving away from that direct medical model that historically isn't always a good thing, right? It's not individualized. So watching the fracture happen will push for advocacy. It'll push for change. It'll make insurance and business owners question what they're doing in a good way. And so I think in 5 years, I think we're just going to watch the fracture. I don't think anything will be healed or changed or rebirth will happen yet with ABA, but I think we'll see further fractures.
That makes sense. As clinical leadership, where do you think Bread Achievements is leaning in that fracturing?
Yeah, and I mean, I won't say it's an exact alignment, but we're definitely moving more in that value-based model, that wrap around the family, not having just ABA as a standalone service. We've always opened that way. We've always had licensed health providers on staff, but broadening that scope and having more partnerships and more types of staff and clinicians on our teams will be really important. So looking at that value-based model in a manner of how can we support the whole family outside of ABA or in addition to ABA is going to be an important part of our mission and growth.
Makes complete sense. So, what role do you think technology plays in delivering better care for clients in the ABA space?
That's a good question. I'm so much of a back of the envelope math kind of person. I
Yeah.
pick up phones, I call people, I don't FaceTime so technology is a funny game for me because I also am really loving AI innovation. So I've
Right.
kind of have this big gap in my personal and professional development and what technology really looks like. But what I will say is in behavioral health, I think technology is taking away the arduous tasks, right? It's taking away I have to build a spreadsheet. I have to look at this graph. I've got to compare this data to this data. And you don't necessarily need someone to sit for 3 hours, 4 weeks developing things, looking at things, trying a new spreadsheet in development. I think that AI integration and different technologies and platforms and services out there exist to take those things off our plate. So behavioral health can remain as a human touch, right? It's a human science serving humans. And I think that the more technology can take over those arduous tasks and feed the humans, right? The professionals, all of this data analysis faster, quicker, more efficient, then we can be better professionals. We can be quicker decision makers for behavior development or OBM strategy change, operations, whatever that looks like, to increase
Yeah.
quality, increase care, increase reach, wherever that leads people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was at a conference last year and someone said, so a clinician got on stage to talk about a technology and he said, this is the best technology that does my job so that I can do my job. And
Yes.
it's exactly that, right? It takes the notes and it categorizes things and it schedules the follow ups and it does all of that so that I can actually spend time with the client and
Absolutely.
actually help. Which I think is how technology should be. That's how it should be growing, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So, what inspired you to transition from the clinical operations side to more of the strategic leadership role?
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's happened organically. I don't think it was ever a mission or drive or this my dream, but it's happened so organically that I always have a passion for the families, the quality of services. And I think since I had my first job at like 13, 16 years old, I always had this macro look at things. How can I cast the widest net to affect the most people in the most positive way? How can I provide the most support, the biggest impact, the most positive change? And I think that just keeps leaning into how my role has developed over time of this, these questions that keep coming up. How can we serve rural families better? How can we get better connected to mobile crisis? How can we serve families that are going through traumatic experiences, or maybe the client, quote unquote, that we have is going through foster care or homelessness? We have all of that on our plate. And how can I grow our company, our resources, our connections, both internal and external, surrounding the communities to be able to reach the most families in the most effective quality way? And not just me, not just bright achievements. Like, I'm having so much fun developing relationships with other providers, other ABA companies. Hey, you age out at age 8? Great. They still need services. We don't have an age cap. We're in network with Medicare. We can serve any age. So having this opportunity that no family left is feeling like they're just left out on a ledge or they're on their own. We always want to have a handoff. We always want to have an opportunity. And if that opportunity is your kiddo's going back to school, that's amazing. Let's meet with the school team to make sure they are successful in school as we exit. We don't need to remain in place. ABA doesn't need to exist in everyone's life forever, and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
But making sure that you, quote unquote, graduate from ABA, which is like, I really don't like that term, because I want people to know life is hard again. Puberty hits, right? High school hits, getting a job, going to college, finding relationships as adults. It's all hard. So I don't want like a 5-year-old graduating from ABA thinking that I never need ABA again in my life, or I never need a mental health provider or behavioral health or whatever that looks like. It's okay to go to your school counselor in high school and ask for help. And I want the services to not be stigmatized and to be uber available. So Bright Achievements being a vehicle for that is why I'm in this role. And it obviously excites me. I'm passionate about it. And I just want to support as many families as possible.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you. We appreciate you. We appreciate you taking time for us today, and we appreciate the work that you're doing in your community. I know Bright Achievements is making a lot of impact in a lot of different communities, and so thank you for all the work that you and your team are doing.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely.